Hello everybody, welcome to my channel, The Real Super Sam. Today is a brand new top 5 stories list on a Spider-Man villain and I hope you enjoy. It's July 2nd again, it's my 22nd birthday, so I am definitely making a Spider-Man video, and today is the top 5 best Jackal stories. A lot of people do not like the Jackal or the Clone Saga, but it's one of my guilty Spider-Man pleasures, especially the Clone Saga. I find entertaining and not that bad. Although maybe it's because I read it when it was all over. Although to that, I also liked the Superior Spider-Man even when it was coming out live, so that was controversial when Peter Parker literally died. So I probably would have liked the Clone Saga if I was reading it live when it was coming out in the 90s. Anyway, this guy has a surprisingly short history considering all he's done, but I definitely got his best comic issues. In the 90s, he became a bit like the Joker. I have been asked to do this guy to have his own video for a while too, and so today, here is the top 5 best Jackal stories. Number 5, Sibling Rivalry. This was for Scarlet Spider 2012, issue 20, where Kane Parker is the new Scarlet Spider, and Otto Octavius is in Spider-Man's body as the Superior Spider-Man. Jackal's only appearance was in part 2, so that's why I will only talk about in show. Anyway, it opens with the Superior Spider-Man and Kane, now the new Scarlet Spider, defeated and tied up by the Jackal. Jackal's barely in it, but he has great moments, and his taunting of Kane is pure evil. If you love Jackal, well, for number 5 on this list, you must read this one issue. A lot of fun Clone Saga callbacks, strangeness with Otto being in Peter's body as Superior Spider-Man, and the one man who, more or less messed up with Spider-Man's mythos, comes back to try and do it again. Number 4, The Punisher Strikes Twice. The Jackal and the Punisher's first appearance was in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 129. The story opens with the Jackal and the Punisher plotting to kill Spider-Man since Spider-Man to them is a killer himself. While meeting Spider-Man for the first time, the Jackal hides in the chimney until Spider-Man gets close to him, then Jackal slashes the back of his head and Spider-Man stumbles off the edge of the roof. Spider-Man actually never sees the Jackal in his first appearance. He's always working behind the scene. Jackal is very smart and demented. He is full of glee that he thinks his Spider-Man is dead. And yeah, this story was also Punisher's first appearance, so we see Jackal trick the Punisher into going along with his evil plan. The last 2 panels teases Jackal being a new number 1 foe to Spidey, and he was for the next 20 issues at least. Then something happened. Anyway, it was a memorable first appearance. Number 3, Smoke and Mirrors. This crazy Jackal story is written across Web of Spider-Man issue 122, Amazing Spider-Man 399, and Spider-Man 1990 issue 56. The Jackal, the original one, in his classic outfit and taunting Scarlet Spider, is bugging him, leading him deeper into the forest. Eventually, the real Spider-Man shows up too, and we see that this guy, Jackal, but call him Jack, is a clone of Peter Parker and is slowly dying. This leads to them discovering a lab, and the original Miles Warren Jackal pops out of a rejuvenating tank and taunts the spider heroes on which one's the real clone and what his plan is now that he's returned. Peter Parker gets pissed at Jackal. Jackal is trying to do everything to strip Peter Parker of his identity, and this drives him mad. This storyline was the start of the Jackal doing that to the Spider-Men. Of course, Squire betrayed Jackal's master plan in the end of Ben really being the original Peter Parker, so Norman Osborn could kill Spider-Man, but that's something else. What Jackal does here is truly insane and maddening, and he does all this face to face with 2 Spider-Men without being scared, with a smile on his face, making genuine jokes. All this even leads to Spider-Man finding Scarlet Spider. But not all is fun in games, Smoke and Mirrors, as Jackal is also very creepy and a definite threat when he wants to be. This was definitely one of his greatest moments and the story which brought the Jackal back in the comics. Number 2, False Truths, True Lies. This story was in Spectacular Spider-Man 222 and Web of Spider-Man 123. The Jackal is in town and attacking Flash Thompson and Scarlet Spider at the community center. He even has hench monsters, genetically engineered creatures he calls the Genetrix. And believing he's the real Peter Parker, it's time for Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, to publicly face down the Jackal. This Jack guy, being a clone of Peter, actually helps Ben Reilly for his quest for proof on who the real Peter Parker is, and he helps since he knows he is dying slowly and Jackal is not fixing his genetic deterioration. There is a lot of great action and cinematic and memorable moments just in these 2 issues for the Clone Saga that I remember almost 10 years later. In the end, the Jackal goes to jail to Ravencroft, but not before it activates the genetic deterioration to kill Jack, who dies giving Scarlet Spider a disc about the cloning truth. It is a very surprising ending. Once again, Jackal is crazy, making jokes, and definitely in the 90s he was like the Joker. Actually, there's a confusing moment in these issues where he says all three Peter Parkers, Kane, and the two superheroes are clones. This might be a big personal pick for me, giving it the number 2 spot, but it is so great and an iconic story for the Jackal. There's just some of Jackal's best moments are in here, you guys, so really good. And the best story is number 1, the tarantula is a very deadly beast. Jackal, Jackal, who's got the Jackal? Even if I live, I die. This 3-parter was in the Amazing Spider-Man issues 147 to 149. Jackal's newest plot needs the help of the forgotten Spider-Man rogue Tarantula as he helps him make a jailbreak. And after defeating Spider-Man with his claws again, it's exposed that Gwen Stacy is alive somehow, and Jackal is going to kill Spider-Man by kicking him off the George Washington Bridge, just like how Gwen died 2 years ago. And yes, this Gwen Stacy is somehow working with or for the Jackal. So these issues raised a lot of questions, but it was never bad or confusing. This is also the best Jackal has ever been. For example, this time when he's talking to like a cop, and he says that understanding and obeying is the difference between night and day. It's kind of funny. This is also the time where Professor Miles Warren exposes his true identity as the Jackal. What and why, since he seemed so nice and innocent all these past issues. In fact, he even pretended to help Peter and Ned Leeds hunt down his old lab assistant who he lied and said that he stole the DNA samples he had in his lab of his classmates, or students. Miles Warren's origin is he had his lab partner working on cloning, but he cloned a human, which Warren wanted, but his lab partner did not. So, freaking out about not destroying the clone, Warren accidentally killed Anthony Serba, his assistant, then burned his body, and one day heard about the animal Jackal, a cowardly canine, and he developed this alias to commit his plans as. His most important clone was Gwen Stacy. He had developed a creepy obsession over her and worked hard to bring her back to life, and even re-educated her to obey him. For once, we see the Jackal as besting Spider-Man in a pretty good hand-to-hand combat match as he scratches apart his suit with his claws and seriously hurts him. As a kid, reading all Spidey's issues in order 1 to 149, I remember thinking that these slashes must be the worst pain he's ever felt. Heck, I still feel that. And the ending, kind of heartfelt, as Miles Warren realizes all the evil he has done and what monster he's become, and he releases Ned Leeds, and in doing so sacrifices his life, apparently dying, ending the threat of the Jackal for a while, and leaving us thinking that Miles Warren was a good man when he apparently died. This was the craziest Jackal has been, the smartest, the scariest, and the most immediately threatening, making for a perfect Jackal story for my number 1 pick. And those were the top 5 best Jackal stories. Yep, I can see why this guy is very much hated. On the surface, he's a little boring and annoying, but hopefully I've convinced a few that no, he can be done just as well as the A-list Spidey rogues. My number 1 Jackal story is one of my favorite Spider-Man stories ever still, and at that time, it was the, disappearance of the Jackal for over 10 years. With that said, thank you for watching this birthday top 5 story special, and have a great day.